This week on the SEMO Sports Zone, presented by A-Corp Sports, we talk about district assignments. Week 1 of Southeast Missouri football being in the books, our top 10 power rankings, and a quick preview of Week 2, and a little bit of college football discussion. This is the SEMO Sports Zone, presented by A-Corp Sports. Welcome to the SEMO Sports Zone for this Labor Day weekend. My name is Drew. With me is my co-host Dave. David, how are we doing today?
I'm doing just fine. It's a long night last night, watching a lot of football and catching up on all the scores, but a lot of interesting games last night.
Oh, definitely. It's week 1. Week 1 is in the books, and it was so exciting just to get that atmosphere back.
Yeah, I was at the Cape Central New Madrid game, and there's a lot of anticipation in Cape Central. They had a big crowd there for that one, and just I went through by Sykeston on my way to Cape, and there's a lot of excitement there. So everybody has that beginning of the year excitement, hoping that they can have a big year, and that's just kind of bleeding through to everybody. Everybody likes the sport.
No, it definitely. I was at the Dexter Malden game, and you could tell that crowd-wise, it was palpable. I think everybody was pretty excited, just because this Dexter team is different this year, so everybody was excited about that. But on the Malden side too, everybody's excited to see what their team's going to do. And week 1, that's the best atmosphere you can go into.
Yeah, new coaches, you have new players, players in new positions. Just a lot of unknowns for pretty much every team. Everybody's interested to see how it plays out, and I think we got a good look in this week 1. We kind of got a good look of what teams may be and what teams may not be in some instances. And so it was an interesting night, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. Coming down to the wire too, we got district assignments finally.
Yeah, I hate that they put those out, the day of the first game. You kind of would like to know who your district opponents are going to be before, but if you're a team like Cape Central, you wish they would go back and redo it. Right. Like I said, I went and watched them last night, and they are really, really good. Their defense is just unreal. They really shut down New Madrid, and you hear a lot about their offense, but their defense is unreal. But then you look at their district, and Cardinal Ritter, St. Mary's, Melville's usually, they've usually got some good teams up there. So that's a tough district. But Cardinal Ritter may be the best team in the state. Just ask Jackson. They put it on Jackson last night.
Oh man, we knew that was going to be a tough game for Jackson. We did not think it was going to be that tough of a game, but. You hate to see it.
Yeah, they just couldn't, from what I understand, they just couldn't throw the ball, and the speed of Cardinal Ritter, they just swarmed those receivers, and they just couldn't get open, and that's tough. Jackson's got a tough schedule these first 3 games. I think they've got Cahokia this week coming up, and then against Edwardsville, who beat them last year, and that's a tough start to a season. Then they kind of ease up a little bit, but that's a tough way to start.
I guess starting to run through just kind of how these scores went. So my first up is Crystal City at Sykeston.
Yeah, that was a lot closer than what I thought it should be.
Especially towards the half.
Right, yeah. Crystal City jumped out to a 12-0 lead, and Sykeston took the lead right there at about a minute left in the first half. And they kind of pulled away late. It was closer than the score was. It was 22-18. Sykeston had the ball with a minute left, and they Crystal City kind of went all out on a blitz, and Sykeston was able to break a run. But they're a work in progress. I think there's some good things that are there. The quarterback, Pierce Baker, looked like had a pretty good game. Keen Atkins had a couple scores out of the backfield. So there's some pieces in place there, but I think it's going to be a process. I don't think they're going to be contending for a state championship this year or anything, but they're getting better, and and getting wins is, I think, very important to them, and just kind of building some momentum.
No, definitely taking home a W on week 1. That's always important. I do think that final score ratio is kind of a little more. It's a little sketchy going into week 2, but Sykeston's got to take away a win. They got to take the lessons they learned from this game and take it into week 2. But against Dexter, that's going to people are going to notice that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if the big thing for Sykeston, though, is a close game. Last year it was pretty much a very similar situation against Kennett. They ended up losing that game. This one they ended up winning and pulling away. So I think that's a positive. That's a step in the right direction for Sykeston. But there's a lot of things they've got to get corrected and get better at. And they will. They've got a great coaching staff there, and they're going in the right direction. It just may not be overnight.
Exactly. Second game on my list was the game that you attended, New Madrid County at Cape Central.
Yeah, I already talked a little bit about that. Cape Central just dominated them. I think they held New Madrid to 52 total yards, and that's just tough. There was just nowhere for New Madrid to run. They tried to run the ball. I mean, the defensive line of Cape Central just overwhelmed the offensive line of New Madrid, and New Madrid doesn't have a bad offensive line. It was just Cape just did a great job getting off the ball, and when your running back gets the ball and his own lineman is pushed back into him, 5 yards in the backfield, there's just nowhere to go. And New Madrid, they had a couple positive plays, but for the most part, they just couldn't move the ball on offense. And of course, the Cape Central offense was really good. Boyd had 4 touchdowns. I think he had 90 yards on the ground. He had a really nice game, and Thomas broke free for like a 60-yard touchdown run early in the first quarter, and they pretty much did what they wanted on offense. They're going to be tough.
No, I mean, exactly. Cape Central, I mean, as far as I can tell this season, this week 1 especially, defense is going to be extremely important.
Yeah, I was extremely impressed with their defense. I mean, they swarmed to the ball and they were everywhere. I mean, New Madrid could not find a hole anywhere, and that's a type of defense that I know that they're circling Jackson on their schedule, and that's a type of defense that Jackson kind of saw last night, and that bodes well for Cape Central. Maybe this is the year that Cape Central can knock off Jackson, but that's a few weeks into the future. But Cape Central looked good last night, and I think New Madrid's going to be fine. That's the toughest team on their schedule, I think, and they're going to play East Prairie next week. Their speed will be able to show out a little bit more against a team like East Prairie than it was against Cape Central, because Cape Central's got as much speed as New Madrid and more. So, I think New Madrid's going to be fine. It was just a tough first game for them, but their schedule eases up.
No, exactly. I mean, for New Madrid, yeah, you can't really take that. No. That loss is like the worst thing in the world. And it's going to be a season for them, and they're going to do just fine.
Yeah. They're going to have a good year. And, there's athletes all over that field for them. The quarterback looks pretty good. Mungo, he made some really nice decisions. Again, there's just nowhere to throw the ball, and he was constantly under pressure, but he did a good job of throwing the ball away when he needed to. And I think he threw one interception it was just a miscommunication with his receiver, and stuff like that will get shored up. That's what the first game's for. They say
exactly.
the biggest improvement is usually between the first and second games. So that shows New Madrid what they need to work on. So that'll be good for them, and I think they're going to have a lot of success this year.
It does bode well for Cape Central, and I am getting more excited about that Cape Central Jackson game as time goes on. Next game up, Kennett at Portageville.
Yeah, I was surprised at the score. Wasn't surprised Portageville won the game, but I'm surprised that they kind of held them down to just 6 points and beat them the way they did. I think I was just kind of surprised. Portageville is going to be better than what I thought, and Kennett may not be as good as what I thought. That's Portageville. They graduated so many seniors last year. You just didn't know what was behind them, but it looks like they've got some good players there, and that bodes well. They're going into a tough Class 2 District 1. I mean, that's a tough district. We talked about Cape Central's, but Class 2 District 1, Crowsville, New Madrid, East Prairie, Kelly, Portageville, Scott City, and Valley. That's a tough district.
No, exactly. I mean, from what I could tell, that Portageville game went more how I expected it to, just from what I've seen during the off season. Portageville just really held Kennett, and Kennett just didn't seem like they connected with each other that much. There was a good touchdown by I think his name is Antonio Hollywood was what SEMO Ball said. So I mean, Kennett obviously has weapons that they can work with. I think it was just you can kind of chalk it up to week 1 jitters, getting the team together, but Portageville just looks solid too.
Yeah, Kennett didn't look great at the Jamboree whenever I saw him. There was a lot of missed handoffs, just a lot of. It's just like they weren't on the same page, and that sounds like that continued last night. And they'd better get it together. They got Paragould this week, and Kenneth's got a pretty tough schedule, so they're going to need to get some things right there. But they've got a good coaching staff. I mean, they've proved that over the years. They've had some good years, and they'll get that together. But they need to get it together sooner rather than later. That could be a problem if it continues.
Exactly. Porterville looking forward, though, I think they're going to do just fine. They're taking on Haytide this coming week. So
yeah, that's going to be a big game because they're having, it's like their first induction of their Hall of Fame class there. They've got a lot of former coaches and former players and former teams that are going to be, so they're going to bring in a lot of people. Not only is it their first home game, but they're going to have that Hall of Fame thing. It's if anybody's ever been to Portersville, that's a fun place to watch a game because the crowd's like right up on the players, and it's a fun place to watch a game as it is. And you pack a lot of people in there like they're going to do. That's going to be a tough atmosphere, I think, for Haytide coming in there, and Portersville coming off a win. They're coming off a good year last year, coming off a win in their first game. That's a big night for them, and I look for them to kind of continue that role. I mean, that's a good thing to have whenever you got the momentum that they have right now.
And just for me, aesthetic purposes wise, not really sports related, but looking at Porterville's uniforms, probably the drippiest uniforms I saw in week one.
Yeah, they've always got some good looking uniforms. I like their look.
Next game up on our list, Charleston at Kelly. This one kind of was more of a surprise than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I told you last week, I think Charleston's going to be better than what people think. And Charleston, took them all the way to the end. They've got a pretty good quarterback there. They've got some good running backs. Their line is, I think a lot of their line is back from last year. I mean, they're going to be better than they were last year. And Kelly's just solid. Kelly knows how to win these close games because they've been in them. Coach Powers has been there for 10 years. He does a great job with that team, and they know what they're about. They're going to run the ball and run a lot of play action, and that's the style that they run. They're going to have lower scoring games typically, and they know how to win those games, and they showed it last night that they can win the close ones.
Exactly. I think one of the biggest things, and this is kind of a Southeast Missouri culture thing, the lack of kicking really separates winning and losing a game.
Yeah.
If Charleston had a kicker, they probably could have won this game.
Yeah, and a lot of special teams and especially the smaller schools, it really is an issue. New Madrid last night, they had trouble punting the ball. I mean, they just they had several miscues on the punts, and you see that all over. And you just don't have that solid kicking game. Where on the other hand, Cape Central, they're kicking the ball into the end zone on kickoffs and kicking, trying field goals and no problems punting. So you don't have any issues like that as you do with some of the other schools. And you're right, that makes a huge difference in games. Just in the Sykeston game, Crystal City, they could not get a point after. They're down 22-18 at that point. If they hit their point afters, it may be 22-21, or maybe they go for 2 and get the 2, but they couldn't convert, and that changed that whole game.
No, exactly. I mean, it's a double-edged sword of just watching this full frontal. You have to get a touchdown or there's nothing, and 2-point conversions. It leads to very dynamic football. At the same time, teams with technique can win games.
Right. And it's just practice. A lot of it is just practice, but you also have to find kids that can kick, and it's not an easy thing. And there's a lot of schools, especially smaller schools, that just don't have that kid that can do the kicking. And then it's a lot of timing involved, and it takes a lot of practice. And especially if you're a team that struggles and you're trying to work on, X play here and X play here, kicking is just kind of you're like, you just run out of time, and something always has to take has to get the least amount of time. And that's usually going to be your special teams. Exactly.
Not to take that victory away from Kelly just by saying that, everything they did in that game, defense wise, excellent.
Yeah, Kelly's always going to have a good defense. They've got, again, Coach Powers and his coaching staff. They're always, they're going to control the clock, and it's going to keep their defense off the field, keeps their defense fresher. And then they've always got, they always attack the swarm to the ball, and they're a good bunch to kind of model your team after them. It's very. I kind of find it's kind of similar to Dexter in a way. They're the similar styles. They attack the ball and a lot of swarming, and it's just they've always got that good defense, and it's always solid. They tackle well, and just a solid defense.
Exactly. Fun fact: this is Kelly's 5th time winning their opener. in a row. So good for those seniors, definitely.
Yeah, the seniors don't know how to lose an opener. Now they need to know, learn how to win those games in the district championships and district semifinals, and I think that's the next step that they need to take is kind of advance a little bit further in district. They get to district, and a lot of times they'll lose to Crothersville or New Madrid, and the next step for them is just to win one of those games and get to the next step. But Kelly's a solid program, and they've only been around for 11 years, I think, 12 years. So it's
super young. Yeah,
they've done a great job with that program.
Next up, Chaffee at Grandview. This one did not actually end; it was postponed. Score in the third. Chaffee had 2, Grandview 21. I don't exactly know how that game was going, but you can kind of tell from the score.
Yeah, there was a lot of lightning and stuff. It caused a lot of problems in games up around St. Louis. I know the Hillsboro MICDS game was a big kind of a MICDS wouldn't come back and play it today. Hillsboro said, no, it's a no game then. And so there's a lot of stuff going on up there with the lightning and stuff. And this game is one of them. I don't know much about it. Grandview's, I heard Grandview's going to have a decent team this year, but I didn't hear much about this game other than, it got suspended for the lightning.
We'll just have to see how that turns out. No official word has been given yet as of this moment. So moving on, East Prairie at Scott City. This one did not turn out the way I thought it was going to.
Yeah, Scott City, their offensive line is apparently pretty darn good, and they were doing a great job opening holes. They had a running back, Underwood, he came 280 yards. That's a pretty good night, but they I heard their offensive line was just phenomenal. They controlled the game, and again, East Prairie was not able to get much push, on their offensive line, and they weren't able to move the ball as well as they thought they would be able to. Scott City is going to be better than what we thought. Again, they were kind of like Portersville. You have a lot of seniors that graduate. You don't know what you have in the wings. Both teams have new coaches. You don't know what the new coaches are going to bring in, but both of those teams look like they're going to be just fine, and they're setting themselves up for a good Class 2 District 1, both of them in that district, and that's both of those teams. Really, they're very similar to each other. And so that'll be interesting later on in the year.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of seemed like Scott City's chemistry was a little bit bumped up. I couldn't tell exactly. I didn't watch the full game, but from what I saw, East Prairie had some good defensive stops. Like, they can do it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, on their offense, I saw some slant passes, things like that, but they just couldn't really get any yardage. Yeah,
and that's the thing is for East Prairie, I think they're going to need to get out in space, and I don't think they were allowed. Scott City just didn't allow them to get out in space the way they needed to. Quarterback was kind of rushed on a few throws because they were getting pressure on him. So. We'll see next week that, East Prairie's got another tough game against New Madrid. They're going to go from power to speed. Now they're going to have to go up against some speed. And so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. A few years ago, East Prairie came in against New Madrid as huge underdogs and ended up beating them at East Prairie. And so it'll be interesting to see at New Madrid what happens next Friday night. But East Prairie's going to be fine. Coach Penrod's going to have them going, and they've got some building blocks there. I'm like you. I was kind of surprised that they didn't get anything last night against Scott City, but at the same time, I wasn't sure what Scott City was going to have. And
exactly.
Scott City looks like they haven't slipped too much from last year.
No, we're going to have to see what this week 2 holds, definitely, to kind of make more generalizations about both of these teams. I think right now they're kind of on even keel as much as the scoreboard wouldn't reflect that. But
right. Yeah, you play in week 9, you never know, it could be reversed, or you see each other in district, that game could be reversed. So yeah, the one thing that surprised me is usually when East Prairie plays Scott City, it's always a high scoring game, mm-hmm. and it was the opposite this game. So that was kind of surprising, but yeah, that both these teams are going to be fine, I think, this year. East Prairie, just again, new coach, you're learning a new system too there, so you're going to have some learning curves there.
Moving on, Thayer at Hayti, final score was 45-28.
Yeah, Hayti hung in there for the longest time, and then Thayer just kind of pulled away. But that's it's a tough way to start the year. Thayer's a program that's been doing it for a long time and has had good teams for a long time. Hayti put up a good showing. They're going to, I mean, like we talked about last week, there are a lot of sophomores, a lot of younger guys and Coach Robinson's going to have them going. I'm not at all worried about them. Again, it's like Sykes, and it's not going to happen overnight, but they're going to get they're going to get that thing rolling again. There's just too many athletes for them not to.
Exactly. Week 1 shows you your weaknesses definitely, and I think Hayti is going to come back from this, and they're going to be just fine. Jackson at Cardinal Ritter.
Yeah. Sorry, Jackson. That's a tough way to start the year. When you play that is very honestly maybe one of the best teams, if not the best team in the state. And that's a tough way to start your year. And, if you want to have your week 1 overreaction, oh no, Jackson, it's all over for Jackson. But no, I don't think that's the case. I think that Jackson is just a tough game, and the tough matchup on top of it with the speed that they have on the, in the defensive backfield. I mean, they've got D1 athletes all over that team. Cardinal Ritter does, and that's just tough for Jackson to move the ball. Again, that's kind of the common theme. Some of these teams just weren't able to move the ball, and Jackson was one of them. They'll get better. They got a tougher opening schedule, but they'll, by midseason, I think everybody's going to see the Jackson that they thought they were going to see.
No, and I think this is good motivation for them to kind of bring it back in week 2. I think it's that, once again, it's that double-edged sword of just like Jackson's a pretty hyped team in this area, and going against Cardinal Ritter, I think it was going to be a good matchup for them, especially just to get, punched in the mouth and kind of like, here's your weaknesses, come into next week, show us what you got. But I think overall, I mean, this was kind of an expected outcome, but at the same time, I was hoping Jackson would have done a little bit better, but hey.
Yeah, I thought for sure Jackson would score more. Last year it didn't seem to matter who they went up against. They were able to score, and they just couldn't move the ball last night. So that is something that opened my eyes a little bit. But we'll see as it goes along. I'm sure they're going to get a lot of that ironed out.
Crothersville versus St. Pius, 41-20.
Yeah, I'm high on Crothersville this year. I think they improved last year, had 7 wins, and I think they're going to continue to get better this year. St. Pius is not a bad team. Crothersville kind of pulled away late in that one, but I think they're kind of flying under the radar right now. But there's some good athletes on that team, and I think they're going to challenge in Class 2 District 1 with. We've talked a lot about that district, but they're going to challenge. Unfortunately, Valley's in there. Valley is going to be really good this year, as always. But Crothersville, I'm telling you that's a team that's going to have to be reckoned with.
No, I'm happy to see it. Crothersville looks like a scrappy team. They look like they're pretty dedicated toward their craft too, and just to see that win in the first week, I mean, that's great for them.
Mm-hmm, yeah, Coach Guglielmo, I think is how you say his name.
Coach G.
Yeah, Coach G. Yeah, he does a really nice job. Since he's gotten there, he has really turned that program around. They were on some hard times when he got there, and he's done a fantastic job with that program. And they just and like I said, they continue to get better, and they've just kind of flown under the radar. We didn't even talk about them last week, and after the show, I was like, I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. It was Crothersville, and they're just kind of flying under the radar. But they're going to be good, and I think people are kind of sleeping on them. But I think that's a team that you really don't want to play because they're going to, they've got speed, they're aggressive on defense, and I think that's, I think that's a team to be reckoned with this year.
It's a good combination. I look forward to seeing what they do in week 2. So the game I attended was Dexter at Malden. So this game went how it was expected to in some ways. In other ways, I think it was a little more. Malden showed out a little more than I thought they were going to. And you wouldn't tell that by the score, but the entire game, they kept consistent in they never really gave up on a play. There was never just that kind of fall back. We lost this. We lost this time, but Dexter they're really good. I think we're expecting to see that, but at the same time, I want to see them against a bigger, more high profile team before I can say that for sure. But their defense swarms.
Yeah. And, first I'm glad to hear that, Malt sees some positives from Malden. Coach Pulley, I got to know him a little bit at Sykeston. He's a super, super guy, and I root for him, and I hope that he can get that program turned around down there. And, I think he's, like we said last week, I think he's the right coach at the right place. And I think he can really build that program. But Dexter, like you said, it was kind of as expected. You go in there, you take care of your business, and you move on to the next week. This is, if they're going to do it, this is a year. We were talking before the show that, St. Genevieve lost 57-0 or 53-0 to St. Vincent. I mean, I never would have thought that. So maybe they're down a little bit, or maybe St. Vincent's just really good. But, you look at that district, Park Hill Central's not what they've been the last few years. And, Kennett looks to be down a little bit. Fredericktown, they took it on the chin to Perryville. I mean, so you look at that district and team after team, it's like, Dexter's got a chance to do something in that district this year. So if this is a year and you just got to take care of your business week after week, try to stay healthy and just move on to next week and just see what you can do. And, it'll be a tough one next week, I think. But, they just have to continue to get better.
Exactly. I think in that vein too, Dexter cannot be too overconfident.
Oh, absolutely.
Just because like in that first return for Malden, they punched them in the mouth and they scored 6 off of their return. So it's, a special team blunder, maybe, but at the same time, Dexter's coming in. They added ferocity right after that. It was kind of clear that was a slip up, but can't be too overconfident. Right.
Absolutely. And Sykeston's going to bring in some speed. They're gonna, there's going to be, a lot of speed on that Sykeston team that just like Malden had. So you're going to have to control that on the kickoffs, and you can't let up for a play. And that's kind of something that Dexter, it's good to get it out in the first game in a game that you kind of win in a blowout, but those are slip ups that you can't have in a big game down the stretch. And,
exactly.
And so that's a great learning thing for them. And I'm really interested to see how that game goes against Sykeston, because I live in Sykeston. I hear all the Sykeston people talk, and they really thought that they should beat Dexter last year, even though I think it was 20-0 was the final score, but Sykeston's like, yeah, we should have probably won that game. I was at that game. Neither team really played very well. But Sykeston truly believes that they can beat Dexter. They're not afraid of Dexter at all, and they're not believing any of the hype that Dexter is good or any of that. Sykeston doesn't believe that a bit. They're fully going in there expecting to win that game. So, if Dexter, has that cockiness about, that we don't have to worry about Sykeston because they barely beat Crystal City or what have you. That could be a problem, because Sykeston's walking in that game thinking they can win this.
No, I think Dexter should go into every game expecting their opponents to have that ferocity. So we'll see how week 2 pans out. I want to do a quick power rankings of all the teams that we just talked about. These are in my week 1 preference order. So if I am completely wrong about that, I encourage anybody to tell me why I'm wrong. I think we should just go. Do you have your top 10 too?
I have a top 10. I'm not confident in it at all, but I have a top 10. Yeah.
This is kind of just a wing it thing. So we'll see. Let's just start with number 1. I've got Cape Central as my number 1.
I still have Jackson. Until Cape beats them, I'm not going to move Jackson off the top. I don't care how bad they get beat by Cardinal Ritter or a state ranked team. Now, if they were to lose to, a Farmington or a Poplar Bluff or something, I might reconsider. But with Cape Central, they played really well and they're really good and they're my number 2. But yeah, you're going to have to prove it. Beat Jackson before I bump you over them, I think.
Exactly. Hey, I took Cape Central just because I think wins look better than losses, but that's just me. For my number 2, I took Dexter.
Well, I got Dexter at number 3. I got Cape there because I don't think Dexter could stay on the field with Jackson or Cape. Sorry, Dexter. They're a good team, but I think the Cape and Jackson level is just a step above. I think those two are just heads and tails above everybody else. And, and then I think Dexter could be the top of the next group. Although Poplar Bluff, they played Valley View, is a tough team. They play Chaminade coming up. I don't know much about them. They could be really good. They could not be good. I don't know. They're all, they're a bigger school and you just never know about them. But I kind of feel that they're probably a decent team, but not. I don't know.
I'd imagine Poplar Bluff's just a little bit out of our broadcast district, so we pay attention to them, but only sometimes. My number 3, I took Jackson, just because, like I said, wins look better than losses, but that does not mean that Jackson is not one of the best teams in the state.
Right. So who's your 4?
My 4 is Portageville.
I got Crothersville. I don't. I just like Crothersville. I think they're good, and I think that's a team that again they've just continued to improve, and they're just kind of flying under the radar. I think that's just I think that's a good team.
My number 5, I took Sykeston.
I took Scott City. With their performance against against East Prairie. I thought it was pretty good. You know, they're coming off a good year last year, and I think, man, I just think that I just think they're solid. And, you know, just what little bit I saw, I just think they're solid. And I think their line could move Sykeston's around a little bit. So that's kind of why I put them ahead of Sykeston.
Well, I guess in that vein, I took Scott City for my number 6. So it was very close.
Right. I've got Sykeston right behind them. So that's, you know, we're right there together.
Number 7, I took Kelly.
I got New Madrid. I got New Madrid just because I think they have the speed. I think if they were to play Kelly, I do a lot of head to head. Okay, if New Madrid plays Kelly right now, I think New Madrid may have that speed on the outside to where Kelly it'd be tough for them to defend that. And so even though they lost, I take New Madrid just a little bit above Kelly.
My number 8, I took Hayti.
I've got Kelly as my 8, and then I've got Portageville. I've got them a little bit lower. They're a little bit lower, but they're still in that top group there. I don't know. I need to see more.
Exactly.
But because I don't know what Kennett has. I don't know if it's Portageville that good, or maybe Kennett's just not that good.
I took Kennett for my number 9 just for that reason too.
Yeah, you know, my 9 and 10, I'm just like, you can throw anybody in there. Hayti is my 9. Because I think they're up and coming again. I think their speed's going to be tough for some teams to handle. But yeah, I kind of threw them at the 9, and Kennett's more my 10 there.
My 10 is Charleston.
Yeah, and honestly, I probably should put Charleston there because I think Charleston, like I said, they're going to be better than what people think. And yeah, I'll go with you there. You convinced me. You twisted my arm there.
Hey man, you can take a pen, you can scratch that out and mark whoever you want to. That's what I did.
Yeah.
So those top 10s, not super consistent. We will see what week 2 brings and then reevaluate and see what we got. Going into week 2, Kennett at Paragould.
I don't know much about Paragould, but I'll say that Kennett needs to show me something. So I'm going to take Paragould in that game until Kennett shows me that they've kind of worked some of their kinks out. Yeah,
I think Kennett's been hit in the mouth, and I think they've got a lot to prove in this game. Exactly like you said, you just need to show it to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Kennett, beat Paragould. Again, I don't know much about Paragould, but Kennett's got to, like I said, work some kinks out, and then we'll reevaluate there.
It's kind of a neutral situation too. This is to me, it's not an exhibition game, but it kind of feels like that just because it's an Arkansas team.
Yeah, I mean, you're just trying to get better at this point, and you're just trying to, get your a higher seed in district. But at the same time, you're just basically right now you're just trying to get everything worked out for your games later on, your conference games later on in the year.
Exactly. Second game, Charleston at Chaffee. I know Chaffee kind of, they didn't get to end their game this week, so looking forward to that. I'm not really sure how this one's going to turn out.
Yeah, I'm going to go Charleston all day on this one. In the past, Chaffee's kind of struggled with Charleston. They did beat them last year, but for the most part, they've kind of struggled with the speed that Charleston brings in there. I think Charleston's better than they were last year. I don't think Chaffee's as good as they were last year, so I'm going to take Charleston in this one.
I think that's a fair assessment. Charleston really surprised me this week, so I think that's, I'm going to take Charleston for that game too. Kelly at Scott City, though.
That's going to be just a brawl. They're rivals. They don't like each other. Could literally turn into a brawl. They don't like each other. I don't know. That's just whoever throws the last haymaker in that one. I'm going to say Scott City, though. I was impressed with Scott City, the way their offensive line played. I think push come to shove, I'm going to go Scott City in that one, but I think it's going to be close.
I'm going to take Kelly just because I feel like they're a scrappier team than Scott City is.
That may be the game of the week. Those two are just they're very similar, and like I said, they don't like each other, so it'll be a fun game.
Next game up, Hayti at Portageville.
That's another tough one. I'm gonna take Portageville because of all the Portageville stuff they've got going on. First home game, Hall of Fame induction that night. They're going to have a big crowd. I think the crowd's going to be behind them. That can give them. But so I'm going to go ahead and take Portageville in that one. But I think that's going to be a close game too. I think Hayti matches up well with them.
I'm of two minds about it. My heart is telling me Portageville. My mind is telling me Hayti. Hayti is just, they're very athletic. They're very quick. And I think Portageville has not had to face that yet. So I think in a way, Hayti might be able to just run up the score on them if they can definitely sneak around their defense. At the same time, I think Portageville is very consistent. So I'm going to tentatively take Portageville just because I really like Portageville.
There you
go. Next game up, Crothersville at Malden.
Crothersville. I mean, Malden's, I've already said how much I like Crothersville. Malden, they're still building. They're still getting better. But I think Crothersville is just going to be the better team here. They're a few years along in their rebuild than Malden is. So Malden is back where Crothersville was when Coach G got there at Crothersville. So I think that's definitely a Crothersville advantage in this one.
No, I can agree with that. I think Crothersville is going to win. I'm hoping Malden. I'm going to say I think they get maybe 16. That's just a late 16. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I think Malden has a lot of physical talent. It's just right, like you said, they're in this rebuild period, so they're kind of getting their cohesion together. I don't know. I don't know how well Crothersville is going to do against them. I definitely think they're going to win, but we'll have to see how that score goes.
Yeah, Coach Pulley, his biggest thing this year is just to get them improved and to keep them together. Don't let them, whenever you have some adversity, don't let them fall apart. Keep them together. You're going to take some tough losses, but you just have to.
Malden has a hard schedule.
Yeah, they do, and you just got to keep those guys together and work through it. And if Coach Pulley can get them to do that, then that bodes well for next year and the year after that.
Yeah, like you said last week, it's you don't notice those dividends until the years that you start showing success.
Right.
Unfortunately, you just kind of have to go through a couple hard years in your rebuild. But I think Malden's going to come back eventually, and I think this game it's going to encapsulate it. Up next, East Prairie at New Madrid.
That New Madrid home game for there's their first home game. Their only home game for a while. I think they've got 3 on the road after that. So I'm going to go New Madrid. I think the speed's going to be too much, but I think East Prairie will put out a better showing. I think they'll be able to get on the board some. But I think this will be a high-scoring game, and I think New Madrid. I think New Madrid will pull this one out. I think there's just too many athletes on the field.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think the only other thing that I could add is that East Prairie might have a defensive measure against New Madrid, but I'd actually have to see what New Madrid can do against a team like. That's not Cape Central.
Yeah, New Madrid looked good in the Jamboree with Sykeston, Kennett, and Fredericktown. They were I thought they were the best team there out of the 4. So I think they're going to be able to move the ball. I think and again, it's still early. You really don't know, but I don't think there was any injuries last night for New Madrid. I think they're going to come in pretty healthy. So I'm gonna go ahead and I just think too many athletes.
That's a fair assessment. I'll take New Madrid for that game too. Kind of entering into some games that are a little more out of our district, so we don't really have that many opinions on them. Cape Central and at St. Charles West.
I'm going to say Cape Central until someone proves me different, or until they play Cardinal Ritter. Yeah, I mean they look good. I've already talked them to death, I think already, but they a good defense, a lot better defense than what I was expecting. And of course their offense has been talked about a lot. They've got 2 great running backs and they didn't even really have to throw the ball last night. So, but just a great running game. And St. Charles West, I mean, they're going to have to put together a good game to beat them.
No, Cape Central is a dynamic Class 5 team and they look like it. Up next, Jackson at Cahokia in Illinois.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know a ton about Cahokia. I'm going to say Jackson in that one. I do know Cahokia won last night like 50-0 over. I think it was over a smaller school up in St. Louis. So I'm going to go ahead and say Jackson. If I'm Jackson, I'm a little ticked off right now.
Yeah, this is a proving game.
Yeah, and I'm ticked off, and you know that there's going to be a lot of people going, well, what happened to Jackson? You got beat by the turbo clock. It's I'm sure Jackson's going to want to rebound from this, and I'm sure it'll be a good week of practice. And I'm gonna be confident that they're going to go up there and take it to Cahokia.
I guess just in the vein of it's a Missouri school against an Illinois school, I'm going to take Jackson. For our A-Corp game of the week, we have Sykeston at Dexter.
Well, I'm going to take Dexter. I think Dexter. I mean, this again we've talked about this is their year, and this is another box for them to check. Do what you're supposed to do. I think most people are going to be predicting Dexter to win this game. They've struggled with Sykeston at times, even when they've had the better teams. They had them beat at Dexter a couple years ago, at Dexter a couple years ago. They had a big lead on them and ended up losing that game in the second half. So you got to put together 4 quarters and play to the whistle. But I think if Dexter does that, I think Dexter wins this game.
Yeah, I think Sykeston really has to manage a few players on Dexter. Jackson Howard, the QB for Dexter, he's been very good at getting rid of the ball as fast as possible and accurately. So I think they're really going to have to try and push the pocket on that for sure. Make him struggle a little bit. Sykeston's also going to have an answer for Nolan Alford. He is a weapon both offensively and defensively. I think defensively he really showed out against Malden. His ability to collapse on the QB definitely was. He's a playmaker.
Right. And for Sykeston, they're going to have to get the ball to Keen Atkins. He's got some speed. He's a tough guy to bring down. I think they're going to try to focus on him, getting him the ball a little bit more than maybe they did last night. They kind of focused on him a little bit more in the second half, it seemed like, and he was able to break free. So I think for Sykeston, it's important to get him the ball. It's just, again, teams are kind of feeling themselves out, and so I don't know with the new coaching staff, with Sykeston, what they have in plan. It's like I said, a different coaching staff than what Dexter has seen in the past. But Coach May, Scott City, and Dexter, they had some great games the last couple of years. So I hope this is a good game, and I think it will be. I think it'll be maybe closer than some people think, but I do think Dexter pulls this out.
No, I think for a rivalry game, I hope it's scrappy, and this is a very early homecoming for Dexter too.
Yeah, I've noticed that some teams are having homecoming like early in the year, and like their first home game is also your homecoming. That's you don't see that very often. So, but hey, I'm sure Sykeston doesn't like being the homecoming game, but at the same time, I'm like, it'll bring more to the game as far as fans and things of that nature.
Exactly. I think for Dexter, for it being homecoming, it's going to add that little bit of element for them to push it a little bit further. So I'm going to take Dexter, obviously, but we'll see how that game turns out. Just kind of adding some personal anecdotes. College football's back. That's really exciting.
It is.
Missouri put it on Murray State. It's kind of to be expected. 51-0. Arkansas over Arkansas Pine Bluff 70-0. It's it's that week one whatever games. I mean, both of us, like with the Big Ten. Well, not you. But,
yeah, I'm an independent.
But for me in the Big Ten, I'm very excited for today. Fresno State comes to the Big House to take on the champs.
It's nice to see Michigan playing somebody tough or at least halfway tough in the preseason, or I guess the non-conference schedule.
Exactly. Yeah. But I'm excited for that. I'm just excited that football's back.
Yeah. And of course, I'm a Notre Dame fan. You're a Michigan fan. I'm a Notre Dame fan, and
that's why we have a table between us.
That's right. And we, Notre Dame has Texas A&M. We're working a little bit tougher than a little bit tougher than Fresno State on the road. I'm used to disappointments every year since I can remember. It's been pretty much a disappointment. So I'm expecting at least one or two this year. So hopefully this isn't the one, but it's going to be. This year is going to be a little different because you can lose a game and you can still be considered for a playoff. Your season's not over if you lose a game like it had been in the past. So that's a good deal for college football. I think it's going to continue to bring games at the end of the year. Those games are going to mean a little bit more, I think, for a lot of teams. So I'm looking forward. I just like college football in general.
Exactly.
And it'll be a fun day.
No, good for you coming in as Notre Dame, because I've heard some contentious arguments about if Notre Dame ends up a 5th seed once national tournament comes around.
I would love. I mean, I think that's great for Notre Dame if they're a 5 seed. You get a home game, and then you get the 4th team, the 4th conference champion. So you get the worst of the conference champions. So yeah, I mean, it's a good spot to be in, but you got to get to that 5th seed, and you've got to win. You got to win these games, and I don't think Notre Dame's going to be a 5 seed if they lose this game today. If they get in at all, it would be 8, 9, 10 or lower. But yeah, I think for Notre Dame, I mean, like I said, I'm used to disappointments as far as that goes. Every year we lose a game where we should win, and of course we lost our left tackle, so that's never good either.
Well, Michigan's coming in as the 9th seed in the AP, but I don't know. I think our ceiling is extremely high, and our floor is 7 wins, is what some people say. But I think Michigan's.
No, yeah.
I think Michigan's got.
Yeah, you don't need Connor Stallions to get nine wins. I don't think. I think Michigan's going to be fine. I think. Plus, you guys have a national title now, so you guys can still smile if you do win 7 games. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think nine wins probably right where I would guess. Michigan's going to be fine. I'm interested in Ohio State and all the money that they've put into that program and watching what happens whenever they fail again.
No, Big Ten is that's my conference. I love seeing every rivalry that comes out of that. But the SEC is big for everybody around here, and I can't wait to see how that goes. Missouri, I'm excited to see how Missouri does this year.
Yeah, Missouri's another team that'll break your heart every year. This is, if they're going to, it's kind of like we were talking about Dexter. If Mizzou is ever going to make a run, this is a year to do it. They are set up. They have a good offense. Their defense looked pretty good the other night. If they're ever going to do it, this is a year. And, you got Nick Saban out of the way. Mm-hmm. You have a very manageable schedule. Let's see what they can do.
I'm not going to be a pessimist about it, but from what people have said, looking at Alabama, they look no different than the Nick Saban era. So, you can hope, you can pray, but Alabama's kind of inevitable in some ways. They
can look no different, but we'll see what happens when they're actually out on the field. Do they play any different? That's the thing. Nick Saban had that intangible, and I don't know if DeBoer has that yet with this team. Maybe he does, but we'll see. They're not as scary. I think the biggest thing is other teams aren't as afraid of them as they were whenever Nick Saban walked out of that tunnel.
Exactly. No, just for Missouri around here, and for every coworker I have in the office that loves Missouri football, I hope they do well.
Yeah, and I've always rooted for Mizzou. It's just like I said, they'll break your heart every year. I can remember when they were number 1 and had a chance. You win one more game, you're in, and they lost to Oklahoma. So yeah, it was tough, but
they beat Ohio State in a bowl game, and so that puts them pretty high up in my list.
Yeah.
All right, that has been week 2 for the SEMO Sports Zone. We hope you enjoyed listening, and we will catch you next week.